Welcome, Terri-Ann. I'm so excited to have you as a guest on my podcast. How are you today?
I am fantabulous. I am having a very good day. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. You're way ahead of me. I'm just starting my day. You're already kind of winding down.
I am.
So I do have an international audience and I do have international guests. So my very first question is always, where in the world are you? And tell me one thing about you that has nothing to do with your work.
So where am I? I'm on the east coast of Canada, in Atlantic Canada, in New Brunswick. So I have a time zone that usually when I'm dealing with people, they have no idea where that is. So I'm Atlantic time zone. So it's 1 hour post Eastern time zone. And something that has nothing to do with my business, I am obsessed with crime documentaries. Just obsessed with them. Like if I have any downtime at all, I want to go and learn all about the corruption of the world and why, I don't know, but I find it like super interesting. And so I can binge watch different documentaries that have to do with crime and history and all of that stuff.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. I love asking that question because the answers are mind-blowing sometimes. Yeah, but we're not talking about crime today.
We are not.
No. We're talking leadership, which I love as a topic. And I saw on your website, because I browsed your website, you say there, you need to work on yourself first before you can go and grow wildly successful careers, businesses, or relationships. And I would think to be a leader in all of this too. So talk a little bit about that phrase or that sentence that you put there, because it's very prominent there, I find.
Yeah, so I think after going through 16 years of business ups and downs, so I've had 8 different companies in my career. I've had wildly successful companies, and I've definitely have fallen on my butt a few times in both business and in life. So, I have failed in business. I have failed in marriage. I have made the oopsie daisies. And the thing that I've realized coming out of that, and then doing what I would say is my superpower is I go inward. So I did a lot of introspection coming out of some of these ups and downs to kind of figure out like what worked, what didn't work. And then obviously I had lots of mentors. So I had lots of mentors that were doing awesome things. And the thing that came to mind and that came into play every single time is that for you to be successful in your business, for you to be successful in your career, for you to be successful as a leader, as a spouse, as a parent, you need to have you straight first. You need to know what your values are. You need to know what you stand for. You need to know what your why is, your North Star is. You need to have those boundaries in play, because what happens is we go out, and especially if you're an ambitious leader, which most of us are, you got these big, wildly audacious goals, right, in business, but they completely contradict what you say you want in your personal life. I want an amazing relationship with my spouse. And I want this, multi-million-dollar company that requires me to work 90 hours a week. All of a sudden, you're in contradiction. And so what happens is there's almost like a heaviness that happens to us as leaders, and it's a friction. And, yes, business can be hard. Yes, leadership can be hard, but it doesn't have to be hard all the time. And I think sometimes we make it harder than it needs to be because we don't have things in alignment. And so for me, anybody that I work with, you got to start from the inside out. Who are you? What do you stand for? What's your North Star? What are your priorities? Because nobody gets to the end of their life, right, at the end and says, you know what? I'm super glad I work 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
Man, I'm happy I did that. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. They say, I wish I would have had more time with my kids. I wish I would have taken that risk. I wish I would have done that. And typically it has everything to do with the fact that they didn't have goals that were in alignment with their wants. All the things that they actually wanted to do, their goals were contradicting them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I love that also, because I often say, like, I say it a little bit different because I do different things too, but I often say like as within, so without. So it's kind of like when you're not getting really clear on the inside what you want, and the outside might be messy, and vice versa, So I totally like that. So what's your definition then of a really good or even an awesome leader? Like, besides he or she or they started from the inside and defined all their priorities. What else? What else in your eyes makes an awesome leader?
I think if I can define the inside stuff for me, I also have to then define the external stuff. Like, where am I headed? Right? What's the vision? Because again, the definition of a leader is, I have to have somebody following me. If no one's following me, I'm just going for a walk. I think that's the quote, right?
Like that.
And so for someone to follow me, they need to know why they're following me. So again, yes, there's the inside out work you do for you, but then there's can I articulate in a clear and conscious fashion what we're doing and why we're doing it? And can I do it in such a way that it gets you revved up, that it gets you excited, that you also can hold the torch and pass the torch on to others, right? Because I also believe that leaders create other leaders, right? A leader knows when to lead, a leader knows when to follow. And our job as leaders is to create other leaders, right? To be a luminary, to pass the torch. Mm-hmm. And so I think a characteristic trait that really is important for leaders is to be very clear on your vision, but have a way that you can articulate it that gets people excited. Because if not, you're left in this place where you're always micromanaging people. You're having to manhandle, woman handle, they handle people, right? And that's not fair. That's not fair because you can't go off and do the great things that you were meant to do, but also people don't want to feel that tightness of you watching their every move. They also want to be able to do the great things that they were meant to be. The only way they can do that, though, is if they understand the path in front of them, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think you need to be really clear and able to articulate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably not just articulate it once, but keep it kind of front of mind of everyone, you included, because in today's world it's so easy to get distracted. No, that's something else we're talking about later. But it's so easy for us too. It's like I have to redirect myself constantly too. And if you want to be a leader, it's within your responsibility to make sure that the people who follow you and you hand the torch to, that they constantly know where we're going and not just telling them once and then we all kind of end up walking in circles or something.
That's it. Yeah. Like it needs to be front and center, but it also needs to be sort of like checked against everything else. Cause I think sometimes the vision also evolves, right? Like I can set out on day one, this is what I intend to do. And if I'm, smart and I check in on it on a regular basis, chances are by the 6 month, the 12 month, it's evolved. It's slightly different. Yeah. It's worded different because you have new facts and figures and data points that are brought into the play that you're like, oh, this is where we're headed. This is really the point of this exercise, of this project, of this, whatever we're doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, keep it front and center, but also have checks and balances that you're checking in on it and going like, yes. Is this still the thing that we want to be doing?
Yeah. And I think that helps when you constantly communicate it. I sometimes feel like when we're constantly communicating and constantly talking about it where we want to go, we're also noticing where we maybe have to make these small adjustments, rather than, okay, we set our vision once and now we're heads down, blinders on, and we work towards it. And then we're losing it and we're also not seeing that maybe there might be an easier way, because something you talked about before is like, it doesn't have to be so hard. So maybe we don't see the easier ways, because once we are on our way, if we do look around, we may find easier things that we were not aware of back then. So yeah, I love what you're saying, constantly checking in. And so would that be something that you would say that's why a lot of people fail at achieving their goals, because they're are not coming from the inside out, then they're not able to communicate it properly, and then they're not checking in constantly whether they're still going in the right direction? Or do you have another component that you feel like is missing to reach or achieve the goal?
Yeah, you're hitting it the nail right on the head. So I think that there's sort of a few things that we need to have in check. So it's your priorities, right? So your priorities are that inside out methodology to say, okay, are the goals I'm setting in alignment with who I am and what I actually want as a person? Because sometimes we're setting somebody else's goals, or like the book that we read, and it's the book said we're supposed to scale to this size. So we do that goal next, but that's not the goal we really want to do. So I think first it's your priorities. Then you need to have the plan. So you need a plan. And so again, a goal that is just a goal, it's sort of like a bright light in front of us without a plan is really just a wish. It's like taking a quarter and throwing it into the wishing well. And so again, the plan is sort of like all the micro goals, the things that you think you're supposed to do along the way. Those are your checkpoints. That's the stuff you're supposed to be checking on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to go, did that work? Should I have posted 60 times on Instagram? Nobody was paying attention. No, don't do that anymore. Whatever it is, right? Yeah. So you need your priorities, you need your plan. The process is in the checkpoints. So the checkpoints, the KPIs, what is it that I'm actually trying to accomplish? And then I think the thing that's missing for most people, and all the studies show this, that you're only about 55% likely to achieve a goal with everything I just said in play. About 55% likely.
55, I didn't know that. Interesting.
You're 95% likely if you get accountability. That's where most of us leaders fail. Yeah. Why do we fail? Because we're at the top. We answer to nobody. Yeah. And so who's going to hold us accountable? And that's why I think it's so important, whether you have a coach that you hire, a mentor you hire, or if you have somebody that's in your realm that you can set an accountability appointment that's like, okay, here's the goals, here's the plan, here's the process, like the checkpoints that we're going to have. We're going to meet every Friday at 2:00. And now you're responsible to somebody outside of yourself. You need that. You are 95% more likely if you have that in place. You're only 55% likely if you don't have that in place. Yeah. So to me, I'd rather be closer to the win than further away. So get an accountability partner.
Yeah, this is really fun. So I didn't know it was only 55 without accountability, but I just this week talked about accountability on my podcast, actually talked about consistency, because somebody in my audience asked me how, because I just posted the 114th episode. It's 2 years now. And the person was saying like, how did you even do this? And I was also talking about it. Well, it's kind of like external accountability. If you don't show up every week on your podcast, it's pretty visible for everybody. So it's a mild accountability. The much better one is what you're saying, that we meet weekly and report the progress, and we're so much more likely to do it. And I also often talk about it too. In a way, it's a sad thing, no? So because we are more likely to do it if we have to answer to somebody outside of us than doing what we want to do and actually be committed. So what I said in my podcast is, if you have an appointment with somebody, you for sure show up. If you just have an appointment in your calendar that now you should, for example, record a podcast episode, you might be tempted to just, I don't feel like it. And that is the part that I find is sad, but that's how our brains sometimes work. And
it is. Yeah. Well, but I also think the thing to remember is like, we do not fail to the level of our goals. We fail to the level of our systems and our habits, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's James Clear that maybe said that
in Atomic Habits. Exactly.
And so I think what that tells us is that we're wired based on habits. And so if I have somebody, so let's take, fitness. So I'm somebody who wants to be fit, and it has nothing to do with weight loss, anything like that. But over Christmas, I stopped going to the gym. I got a cold. I just kind of fell off the wagon wheel, and I never was able to really get back on because I mucked with my habits. So about a week ago, I hired a personal trainer to hold me accountable to going to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. And I'm paying that person. And so now I'm accountable to them, and I'm going to be with them for about 12 weeks. And after 12 weeks,
for you too.
That's right. And after 12 weeks, the habit will have been created. I will be okay on my own after that. So I don't think it's so much that we always need accountability. Mm-hmm. I think it's sort of like we need accountability to create the habit, the systems. And once the system's in place, it's kind of like you wake up in the morning. What's the first thing you do? Everybody has a habit that they do, right? Mm-hmm. So I wake up in the morning, I brush my teeth, and then I have coffee. That's what I do. And it never fails. I don't do coffee and then brush my teeth. I always brush my teeth first, which is so weird because it doesn't taste that good. But that's what I do. It's my system. It's my process. It's what I do.
Yeah.
And so now, soon as I'm done that, I have a shake and I go to the gym because somebody's holding me accountable, right?
Yeah. I called it. So my coach said something really interesting last week. She said, you have to hustle until you have momentum. And it's kind of like, even if you don't like the word hustle, I said you have to be intentional until you have momentum. And momentum is also like when the habit starts to stick, and so I like that. This is probably also the reason why you have another statement. You say every leader needs to develop grit and resilience. And I think that is one of the reasons, because in one way, yes, accountability is good, but we could still slack off even with accountability. So we do have to develop this grit and resilience that every time we fall off the wagon, if there is even such a wagon, that we're actually getting back up and we're trying again and we're wanting again. And if the obstacle comes, we find a way around it, through it, about whatever, or does it come from a different train of thought in your head? That's where it comes for me.
So I think, so for me, grit is the combination of passion, purpose, and perseverance. And so I think if you have the first two, sort of, again, going back to that why, the inner North Star. If I know why I'm doing it and I'm excited about it, right? Like if you're not a 10 out of 10 excited about the things that you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Like they shouldn't be on your to-do list. They should be delegated. They should be automated. They should be deleted. You should be completely choosing a different career, whatever it is. Because if you're excited about it and it feels like it's attached to something like bigger than you, there's a purpose, there's an impact, there's a driven force, then what happens is you will persevere. And perseverance can usually only happen with those two things. And so I think that's why you need grit. And then resilience is understanding that stuff's not going to always go your way. Yeah. Like as much as you plan for it and you're prepared and you got everything, all the ducks are in a row and you're just like, yeah, I'm passionate. I got purpose. I got it. Something's going to happen. It could be big. It could be small. It could have something to do with a decision you made. It could have something to do with a decision somebody else made. Either way, when you have resilience, you have the ability to bend, not break. And so resilience really, I think, is, again, these are all soft skills that can be developed. Everybody in the world has the ability to develop it. And it's just, again, you have to have checkpoints. You have to have checkpoints, like at the end of every day, scale of 1 to 10. How did I do today? How did I show up for myself? How did I show up for my goals? How could I do it, different tomorrow? And if you can have that kind of a conversation with yourself, you're forever improving. You're moving the needle forward. And that's really where resilience is built. It's in the process of building the muscle of getting better, understanding that not every day is going to be a 10 out of 10. Yes. But what did I learn from the 6 out of 10 day or the 2 out of 10 day, right?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So, and I like that with the checking in. Because we don't do this enough. I feel like I call it different, but we're both saying the same thing. I always say, be intentional. So be intentional in the morning. And then part of being intentional is, of course, that you review, did I actually do what I intended to do? And if not, how I can be intentional about doing it better in the next day, And another thing is like a lot of people then constantly complain and they say, oh, I have no time and I have to do this, that, and everything. And you have an interesting sentence. That's actually what originally sparked my interest to interview you, is that one, show me your calendar and I'll tell you your priorities. And I talk a lot about that too. It's like this, and I call it social clutter, when we're taking on everybody else's priorities instead of going for our own priorities, or making at least sure our own priorities have priority on our calendar. No. And then if we do have time, we can put some other people's stuff on it. So I wanted to hear your extended explanation around why you say this.
So each of us are blessed with 168 hours in a week. no more, no less. I can't make a 24-hour day 25. I've tried. It doesn't work. And so the struggle with that is there's some basic necessities that need to happen in that 168 hours. So you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to take care of some basic necessities, right? And then from there, it's all subtraction. Subtraction. How come I can't say that word today? Help me, Connie. Subscription. Folks,
I'm not even trying because I couldn't speak a way simpler word.
Okay, I got a new word for you. Minus. You're just minusing off the hours. And so when you think about that, and I love your word, intentional. If you're not intentional and you don't understand your core value system, you don't understand your priorities, what happens is you start saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
You say yes to the 15 people who want you to go on a podcast. You say yes to the 4 friends that want you to hang out this week. You say yes to the community organization up the road that wants you to sit on their board. You say yes, 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 yes. And you have all of that. And somehow that became the priority first. It's now in your calendar. Boom. Mm-hmm. Now your kid wants you. Your spouse would like to hang out with you. I don't know. Maybe you want to go to the gym. Where does it fit? It doesn't. And so the analogy I always put in front of people is picture 2 glass jars in front of you. And in front of you, you have a pile of sand and you have a pile of rocks. Now let's assume the rocks are the things that are actually important to you. Your children, your health, your spouse, the stuff that matters to you as a person. And so imagine the sand being all the other stuff that we just talked about. Everybody else's stuff, the OPP, other people's problems, all of that. Your career, your business, all of that. And so in jar number 1, I'm going to fill it with sand first. I'm going to fill it with my career and my business and my philanthropy work and the stuff my friends need from me and all the OPP, the other people's problems. And then I'm going to take the rocks and I'm going to try to fit them in. Now let's visualize that for a second. They're not fitting. They can't fit because I filled it with sand. Now let's look at the other jar. If I take the other jar and I take the rocks and I put it in the jar first, and then I add the sand, auto-magically, it all fits. Somehow it fits. And the only reason it fits is because I put what was important first in my calendar. And so when somebody says to me, you ask them, what's the most important thing to you? My kids. You'll get that a lot from moms, right? And I'm like, cool, show me your calendar.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, well, where's your kids? And they'll be like, well, I'm in my first year of business. I'm in my second year of business. I got to really hustle. It's like, you don't get those years back, right? Yeah. I was that person before in my 20s. I was working 85 hours a week. I had 2 young children. I had 2 retail stores in 2 different cities. I hardly saw my kids. My daughter was in soccer. I didn't get to show up at the games. You don't get those years back. And so I think you need to always understand that every day you need to be intentional with your decisions and your choices, and you have to put what's important first. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So 2 things come out of that. One thing where I get the pushback is no, that is selfish. That is, I can't be selfish. I have to help. They need me. That's the one pushback I get. And the other one is not so much a pushback. It's sneaky. And it happened to me as well, where I got straight away from my priorities because you come up to some kind of a harder issue or block in the road where you want to go. And then all of a sudden the shiny object over here seems so much more. And then you tell yourself, oh, this fits into my priority because I'm just going to go do this now and whatever, Have you come across that?
Yeah. So let me answer to your first, which is the selfish. So I know it's for some of us, it's been a long time since we've been on an airplane, but if you can remember the last time you were, the steward or the stewardess, when they're doing their emergency breakdown at the beginning, in case of an emergency, ensure that you put the mask on yourself first before you help anybody else. And so I think the way that I look at it is, you can only give to other people from the overflow that's on the saucer. So think of a little teacup on a saucer, and everything that's on the inside there, it needs to be overflowing for me to be able to show up for my community, to be an amazing mom, to be an amazing spouse. I can't pour from something that's bone dry. And so that if you're not taking care of all the things that are important to you, and that is your health and your wealth and all of those things, then you're trying to give from something you don't have. It's an empty cup. So I do not believe it's selfish to put your priorities first. And I also don't think you're saying no all the time either. Like sometimes it's not right now.
Yeah.
Right now could be chaotic. There could be other things that are happening in your life. And I also think we need to understand that life is a little bit like triage. Like it's not like every week for the rest of my life, I'm going to work only 28 hours a week. And I'm always going to show up on Thursdays for practice at my kids. There will be weeks where something comes up and that's okay. But it becomes the thing that doesn't happen all the time. It's the exception, not the rule. Right. So I think that's the answer to the first one. And then the second one, what was that again? That was,
yeah, that's what happens sometimes with us. And I don't know whether I'm
yes,
for
the
sure not the only
shiny,
one, but I
yes,
don't know
the shiny new object. Okay.
Yeah.
So the shiny new object, so I think that is I call that like the checkpoint. So when I'm about to do something that is sort of outside of the norm of what I do, because we all have, again, habits and systems. You have things that you do every single day, and then something new comes along. So I'll put myself on the hot seat for a second. The example for me would be TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. Actually, it's a lie. I have a profile on TikTok. I've done nothing on TikTok. Why? Because if I play in that game right now, it really is a shiny new object. It's really something that I think I'm supposed to do, but I have nothing that's validating that. And I've got all this other stuff that I'm supposed to be doing. So I did a checkpoint. I was like, put my finger up in the air and I go, okay, is it going to bring me closer to what I want? Like guaranteed. Or is it potentially going to veer me off the path and get me squirreling on something new, learning a new system, and having to grow an audience over there? And it's like, yeah, it's totally pulling me off the path. Okay, got a profile. I have 0 videos, and that's how it's going to stay until I have everything else doing what it's supposed to be doing. So TikTok probably would be awesome for my business, but just not right now. Yeah. So I have to kind of put it on like the parking lot. It's over there. It's waiting for me.
But I think that's sometimes hard to be that honest with ourselves, because like when it happens to me, and it has happened to me, and I caught myself down the road somewhere thinking like, oh, wait a second, but it happens to me. So I put myself on the spot when there is something really out of my comfort zone. Like as self-employed and entrepreneurs, we're usually anyways outside the comfort zone. But if it's really outside the comfort zone, then you're trying to find something that is not so scary, and then this shows up, and then all of a sudden making funny videos on TikTok could be justified to not do that other shiny thing. And so this is it's just so funny. And that's, I think, like that's one of the things that I talked about is when like the motivational triad. Have you heard about that? That the brain always, how was it going now? The brain wants to be safe, or wants to keep you safe. It wants to preserve energy. And the third one, I forgot now, whatever. So this is, our brains are actually wired to not put us in uncomfortable situations, and we have to overrule that. And that's why this shiny object and TikTok.
So I want to speak to that really quickly. So I think the answer is like yes and no. So I think that there are things that are outside of our comfort zone that sometimes are too big, right? Like going from never speaking in front of a group to going on a stage might not be the next right move for you, right? It could be going to virtual networking sessions and choosing 3 people that you introduce yourself to and then following up with them. It could be starting to do podcasts. It could be going on a couple live shows, right? And so the end result, the outcome is I want to be in front of lots more people. So there could be smaller steps to that. I kind of look at it as like a ladder in front of me. If I need to get to the top of the ladder, which is going to get me to the 3rd floor, I got to take the first step, the second step, the third step, but so on and so forth. So I think sometimes the big goal is the 100th step. And so, yeah, it is too big. And there is something to the left or to the right that's smaller, but it's still like one of the steps to get me to the big step. Like the big step, I'm still going to get there. So I think that that's okay. I think the caveat to that is sometimes we come up with excuses. And that is the hardest part about being an entrepreneur and a leader is, you are the leader of yourself. So you really have to have some strong willpower and some good mojo in you to say, no, this really is one of those procrastination monkeys on my shoulder. Like I'm literally going down the path of least resistance because I can, and nobody's going to tell me no. You got to tell you no.
Yeah. Or have that accountability call where whoever is on with you on that accountability call can question, because from the outside, they can see it sometimes better that you may be just telling yourself you're still going towards your goal, but you're not.
That's right. That's right.
I also saw that on your website that you're very passionate about that women are standing more up for themselves, that their voices are being heard. And I would assume, and I don't think you said it that way, that they become more leaders. Excuse me. So there might be a story around that too, that you want to share maybe with the audience. Why, other than we both are women, so maybe that's reason number one, but there might be some other ones behind it.
Yeah, I definitely think probably part of it is because I'm a woman, but I see the gap, right? And so I think we as a society as a whole have done a heck of a lot of really good work in closing the gap in women's leadership, but the work's not done. And I also believe that every woman, regardless of her age, where she comes from, she has this gift, she has this story. And I think that if we can get to a place where we all not earn, because I think we've earned our place at the proverbial leadership table, I think we need to take our place. And to take your place means you need to stand up. You need to share your story. You need to share your voice, your opinion. You need to speak up when you see injustices, and you need to do that thing that's right here, kind of between your heart and your belly, sometimes a little bit higher. And it's like the thing that you were meant to do. And I believe if more women, regardless of how small and minute you think that goal, that purpose is, somebody out there needs it. Somebody out there, if they heard your story, if they understood your gift, it would completely catapult and change and transform their lives. And that's the ripple effect, the butterfly effect. And so I just feel like if more women stood into their greatness, stepped into the light, became the lighthouse, imagine the mountains we could move. And it has nothing to do with men versus women. It's not that. It's just there is something special that is lacking, that if they stood in to that light, the world would just be a better place. And that's just a true humble belief that I have. And so I've made it my mission. It's why I work predominantly with women, to allow them that space to really discover who they are, what they stand for, what's their authentic voice, so they can go off and change the masses, and whoever those people are.
Yeah, I agree. I have a similar thought process and mission, because I feel too, it's like it just benefits the world if more women are actually stepping into their power and bring this whole thing more into balance. It's not about taking men out or whatever. It's about bringing the balance up, or 100%. Bringing it into balance. That's how I probably should say it. So now, if somebody is intrigued with what you're saying, where could they find you? We know now, not on TikTok, but
not on the TikTok. So you can hang out with me on Instagram, TA_Richards, or on my website, Terri-Ann Richards.com. And that'll connect you with all the places that I hang out. I also have my own podcast, The Balanced Perspective. And I share a lot of similar stuff that we're talking about here, but it's all the life hacks, the habits, the things that you need on the inside so that you can be awesome on the outside.
So awesome. And so any last words of wisdom, or is there something I didn't ask, or did something come up while we were talking that you feel like this has to be said before we wrap up?
No, I think that you asked awesome questions. I think the only thing I would remind them is sort of to kind of put a nice little bright light on what we're saying is I think you need to be super clear of who you are and what you stand for, because that is the moment that you can step into your greatness and grow your business, be the awesome leader, and just do the great things that you were meant to be. Because I believe that we were all put here for a reason. And so if you haven't figured that out, figure that out. And then the rest becomes that much easier.
Yeah, because it's so much clearer.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Terri-Ann. This was really an awesome conversation. Ticked all my boxes that I was hoping for, talking about leadership. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.